on their minds, and they were trying to navigate their way through this thing. Royal Copeland and Department of Health Director Josephine Baker, not the one you're thinking of, were deciding to make a decision that was going to be controversial for the rest of the country. John Dill Robertson was also making that decision in his area, as well as Health Commissioner Frank Wright in the area of New Haven, Connecticut. The cities of New York, Chicago, and New Haven were doing something very different than the rest of the country. The rest of the country was deciding that they were going to shut down schools. This was the 1918 pandemic, and the country was not sure how to respond. How should they deal with children needing education? How should they deal with children needing to go back to school for learning? And here we are again in 2020, not sure of how to deal with this. And our cities, our states, our counties are making decisions, and not everyone is happy. Hey, everyone, welcome to another session for Emmanuel-Brinklow's Growing Out series. Growing old or growing, am I saying this thing right? I said it all wrong, didn't I? I started so well. Growing Young and Growing Out series on Are we going virtual again? Let's go virtual again. This afternoon, I have some amazing guests with me. Want to welcome each of them. I just want to actually just say their names, and then I'm going to go around and have them share who they are and what their positions are. So today we've got Lakeisha Dickerson, we have Jewel Ralph, we have Dr. Keslin Braden. Did I say your? I'm Dr. Keslin Stennis. I'll say that part.
Good enough.
And then Carmen Starling. How is everyone doing? Let's start with Lakeisha. Just share a little bit about who you are and who you are.
My name's Lakeisha Dickerson. I am a parent of a 10-year-old, a 18-year-old, and a 23-year-old. I'm also an educator. I'm a middle school teacher of social studies and English language arts at George E. Peters Adventist School.
Awesome. Let's move over to Jewel Ralph.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jewel Ralph. I'm the parent of two children, or young people, I should say, a 16-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. I'm also a principal in a public school system, Baltimore County.
Wow. Thank you. Dr. Keslin.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Keslin Braid-Stennis. I am chair and professor in the Department of Social Work at Coppin State University. And I also am a parent of four, ranging in age from 29, 23, 10, and 8. The youngest are attending George E. Peters Adventist School.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, it's a span.
Yes. Carmen Starling.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Carmen Starling. I have four children, 15, about to be 14, 12, and 4. Yeah. I am a fresh grade teacher at Bowman Bridge Elementary in Howard County.
Yeah. So each of you have this unique experience of being both in the teacher space or the education space, as well as the parent space. And we're moving back into the time where kids have to go to school. How's everybody doing with that? How's everybody doing? Let's start with Jewel. How are you doing?
Well, first I was a little nervous. I was actually very nervous because I wasn't sure where the state was going to go, where my school district was going to go as far as virtual learning and the schools that my kids attend. And I was sending emails and sending videos to all the principals saying, can you watch this? Can you watch that? And even to some of the members of my district so that they could watch these videos as well. Because I really wanted to make sure that my students and my own personal kids started virtually. So I was a proponent for virtual learning because I could see all the things that go on in the schoolhouse and the potential for the students to really get COVID. So yeah. I was very nervous about that initially.
Wow. Lakeisha, how are you doing with all this?
I was kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. I was really hoping that we were going to start. I figured, especially when the American Pediatrics came out and said they felt like, kids need to be in school for social and all of that. And I really missed my kids and I wanted to be there. I knew that I felt like if anybody was going to get sick, it was going to be the teachers. We'll be okay. But then as it got closer to school starting and you see the numbers going up, and then I started thinking about, okay, if the teacher gets sick, who's going to teach these kids? Because we're not going to get any substitutes. It's not going to happen. And I felt like it would be more detrimental to actually disrupt their learning in the middle of the pandemic, doing it all over again. So I became resigned to the idea that we were going back to virtual learning. I wanted my son to be in school with his friends, but it wasn't to be. So I'm okay. I'm resigned to it.
Wow. Dr. Stennis, how are you feeling about all this?
I don't know. I'm glad that the school made the decision to do virtual learning. My children, my youngest children, miss their friends tremendously. And so that has been, that's been a challenge. But I'm thankful that they'll be home, safe, relatively safe.
Wow.
But can I just be honest? I didn't get a break this summer. I usually take my children to my parents for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Oh, the magical 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I didn't get those 2 weeks. And so for that reason, I'm a bit more, I have to put my mind in a certain place because I didn't get the break that I needed. Wow. But I still have to be able to function as an administrator, as an educator, and as a parent. So, I don't know where I am, but I'm here. I'm going to do it. But I'm a mother today. And today, that's how I am.
And Carmen's like you. She's got 4 kids. How are you doing, Carmen? Look at her face.
That's how I'm doing. Like Keisha, I wanted to go back to school because I think there's nothing like an in-school experience as far as learning and being able to interact and love your kids and help them to grow.
Yeah.
But I realize that it's just not safe to do it right now. So, I'm not trying to hurt myself or anyone else being in the school building because it's just not safe. Right now, I am in a state of denial for a few more moments until they tell me exactly what I need to do at school. I don't even want to think about what it's going to be like getting to know new kids that I've never met before and starting that relationship that I'm so great at in the school building online. So how am I doing?
Well,
I'll take my
yes.
Yeah. So here's what we want to do. Those of you that are watching this, go ahead and share with us really quickly how you're doing in the chat window. If you're watching on YouTube or I don't know if that's on the screen, Robert or producers, if you can put that on the screen, meet.ps/Brinklow SDA. If you've got a smartphone, if you're on your computer, well, you are on your computer because you're watching us. Go to that website, go to that link and log in. We want to ask this question. So here's the first question we want to ask. Have you finalized your decision on placement for your child in the fall? I know that some of the panelists just kind of gave us a peek into their mentality as they and their decisions that they're making. But have you finalized your decision? How are you feeling right now about your decision for the fall? Let's start with Carmen.
Because I have different age groups. For my 5-year-old, about to be 5-year-old, we've decided that he will not be going virtual for private school to pay for private school right now, but we still have not finalized our decisions about our girls who we want them to be in school, but the whole economic situation, we're still fluctuating between what we want to do. They want to go back to the schools that they were at, and we want them to be there, but because of our financial constraints, we're trying to decide what God exactly wants us to do.
Wow. Go ahead, Dr. Stennis. Before you go, just want to encourage everybody, go over to meet.ps/Brinklow SDA. We want to make sure that we get people voting and see how people are answering this question. Have you finalized your decision on placement for your child in the fall? Go ahead, Dr. Stennis.
We finalized our decision. The economic piece is real. It is a real consideration.
Yeah.
But I was very impressed with what the girls' school, Georgie Peters, did in the spring, and so I'm comfortable with sending them back to Georgie Peters virtually. And I understand the expenses that, there are additional expenses actually with online learning. And so it is an economic challenge, and the balance of work, life, teaching, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, my kids are going to go back. I appreciate what GE Peters is doing, and I trust them even in the online space with my daughter's education.
Awesome. Ms. Dickerson.
Of course, Frankie's going back to GE Peters, but an 18-year-old is set to start at Oakwood University on Wednesday, and we are very divided in the household about what she will do. She really wants to go, and we're planning on it. But here in Huntsville, I'm in Huntsville right now, the positivity numbers are at 19%.
Wow.
It's very high, and my husband is very nervous about sending them to in-person classes at this time. My daughter, Nicole Milan, is set to start Rutgers. She's in summer school at Rutgers now, but they have it listed as going back face-to-face in September. And she does not want to do online school. If they go online, she has told us that she will be staying home. If they do go face-to-face, she said that she will go face-to-face.
Wow.
So that's where we are right now. We're not set with Natea, but Frankie, yes. Milan, either. We're not sure.
Right. Well, before we go to Jewel, I just want to share, we have about 67% of the people that have voted so far are saying no, they haven't finalized their decision. 67%. Wow. All right, Jewel, go ahead.
So as I stated before in my introduction, I was very concerned where the students, my students that I teach, and as well as my own kids, what their schools were going to do. And when the decision wasn't made for my daughter's school, that's when I actually called the principal and sent the email. Because if they were not going to go virtually, we even discussed we need to send her to a virtual option, because the CDC doesn't know. Things keep changing, and I feel more comfortable having my children in a virtual situation, because for me in my household, I mean, I've had 7 cousins who have tested positive for COVID-19.
Wow.
So some of them are nurses, some of them are essential workers. So it was real for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm, as a mother, my mother hen came on, and I want to protect my children the best that I can. I even spoke to my son's principal, and we were on the same accord. And she wrote me back immediately as to what she wanted to be done. And she said she was going to meet with her board. So I felt comfortable after I spoke with the principals. And I do understand the money is an issue, but I also understand the whole public school system, they're trying to figure it out. I was very pleased on how my children's school handled the virtual learning. That is why I'm opting to send them back there.
Wow. So let's ask this question. I want to ask you about what are some of the things that people need to consider as they make these decisions? You each of you has, there's some element of uncertainty in your decisions. What are some of the items that you're using as benchmarks, as barometers for helping you to make the decisions about sending your kid to school virtually, or where are they going to be? Go ahead. Let's start with Dr. Kesslin.
So for me, the decision primarily was based on our values. Mm-hmm. And this is an individual and family decision. No one can throw shade, for lack of better words, at what you and your family decide to do. For us, it was very important that the school, whatever we choose to do with them, the school has an evidenced plan in place for academics and for health. And those were at the top of our list, along with, for us, the school being a Christian school. And so for those 3 values, our school has, and they've demonstrated. And I say this, not just because my children are at GE Peters, but the children have tested above and beyond in the national test scores. And so we've just been very pleased with how they handled COVID, and they met all three of our top three values criterion. And so, we just decided to continue for those three reasons.
Awesome. What, Lakeisha, why don't you chime in there, please?
For elementary school, for Frankie, academics was big for me. And I do like the way, of course, the school that I teach at, but I think that we really were able to merge the emergency with making sure that the curriculum was taught, was met, exceeded expectations. It's a little harder, I think, for college, because they're older and they kind of have a say in what they want to do. And for me, it was financial, and for my husband, it was, it's a risk. It's the pandemic is out there. And at Oakwood, if you don't go in person, you lose a lot of your academic scholarships, your scholarships, if you don't go in person. And so for me, that kind of settled it. Well, I guess she's going, but if you don't have that academic part, but the finances is a big issue, right? Because by not being in person, some of us have lost some income. We have. And so having to figure out, okay, what are we going to do, and take Nataya's what she wants to do into consideration. Those two are the biggest for me, finances and academics. Like,
wow.
for college, those two are the big ones for me. And for Milan has said she will not do university online.
Wow.
Not doing it.
Wow. So when we went to quarantine in March, there was some sense of, oh, well, we only have to last through this till May because school will be done and then summer's coming up. Now we're heading back into August, September, and we have no idea what's next. What are the things that parents can do to prepare their children emotionally? And how are you preparing yourselves emotionally for the uncertainty that's next? Why don't we start with Jewel?
Address your children's fears first and foremost. Be honest with them with the conversations. Be honest with them with what they're feeling, and their feelings are real. I mean, that's the first thing that you have to address, because some kids may be scared. Some kids may have had family members that have passed away. Some kids may be fearful of going into the schoolhouse in and of itself, but because of the virtual learning, they don't have to worry about that. But also, you're going to have to kind of set up a schedule for your kid and make sure that your child follows that schedule, and not start the schedule when school starts. You need to start it beforehand, getting the students into the routines.
I want to put a pin there. I want to let's jump right in. You're talking about schedules for your kids, and that's a difficult thing for people to figure out and come up with. What type of schedule, Carmen, are you seeing working best for children with virtual education?
Well, hopefully your school will come up with the schedule that they'll have. So they'll have certain times for certain classes. So making sure that your student gets up early enough to prepare themselves for those classes so they're not jumping out of bed and just jumping straight on the computer. Most schools have, like G. Peters had, at this time is your math class, at this time is your English class. So making sure that parents wake their children up, or children get up in enough time to get ready for those first classes and be prepared just like they would be for a regular school day. This is school. It's not pretend, it's not just online, meeting friends, it's real school. So parents need to make sure that the students have enough sleep the night before, make sure they have the breakfast before they get online, and make sure they have everything in place, all the books they need. My kids asked me the other day, can we go school shopping? And I was like, for what? Right, we get in school shopping. That's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, no, you are about to be in school. You need books, you need pencils, you need maybe not a backpack right now, but you need supplies. So making sure you have all of those things and make it like it would be like going back to school because they are. Make it just like it would be going back to school. So they're in the mindset and the framework of being ready for school.
Awesome. So one of the things that I wanted to ask before we started to, I think Dr. Kesslin talked about the financial end of this being real, right? So we have kids that are going to private school and some kids that are going to public school, and the parents that are sending their kids to private school are wondering, oh my, should I be paying all of this money to send them to a private school? Is there a difference between virtually what's happening in a private school versus a public school? Anybody who has a thought on that, can you jump in? What are some of the things that I should be considering with regard to virtual public versus virtual private?
The answer is the same in terms of values. You know, even though it's online, they're all virtual. Mm-hmm. You're gonna get you should still you should still get the essence and the feel of the primary values of that school. So I still expect all of Jesus to be in my children's education. Mm-hmm. If I went to a STEM-based school, I would expect the focus to be on science and learning and technology. So I think you should still get the essence of what you are expecting from those specialized schools, whatever they are.
Let's go to Jewel. What are your thoughts there?
It's challenging because virtual curriculums will be different for private to public. And the public are going to use the standards and the Maryland core goals and learning goals. So it will all depend upon the curriculum that is being taught to your child. Private schools, their scope and sequence of what's being taught first is different than what you're going to see in a public school. So you have to be mindful of that in your decision making. If you're moving a child from 8th grade to 9th grade, that transition is difficult in and of itself because you're transitioning to high school. But if you have a nurturing environment, a smaller situation, if you're sending your kids from G.E. Peters to Tacoma Academy or another school to Tacoma Academy, you may already know the teachers there, so you may already have a relationship built. But if you're sending them from one school to the next, to a public school, you have to build those relationships. So what I can tell you, the public schools, what we've been doing is we've been trying to make connections with the parents and the students so they are comfortable. But it's a new environment. They do not know the teachers. When you're in the Seventh-day Adventist environment, you kind of know, you went to school with them at Oakwood for the most part, or you family members may know who they are. But we have a family relationship going on in the Seventh-day Adventist school system. But it is all virtual, but it's priorities. Do you want Jesus all through your curriculum, or you just want the bare bones of this is learning and Jesus is secondary?
Wow. So let me ask you, I want to dive a little bit deeper there, Jewel. Mm-hmm. So what about parents who are saying, okay, you know what? Let me see how I can manage the system a little bit here. And I'm going to take my kid out of private education for this semester, but then we'll come back like second semester once things are a little bit more certain. What advice do you give to those parents?
So that's personal, that's personal, that's funding. And someone that's going to do that is going to really be finances for them. Mm-hmm. All I can tell them to do is pray about it. They know their child. And they're going to do what they feel in their heart is in the best interest of their child and in the best interest of their family. So there's no judgment zone here for me. They got to do what's in the best interest of the family. And if that is virtual paying and virtual not paying, that's all on the parent and the family. And I would respect that decision if they chose to go to public school because it's free.
Yeah. So let's talk go ahead, Carmen.
And that's where I am right now. I've lost 2 sources of income. So, we have to really make the decision. Now, I also know that if God wants us to be in private school and we pay for that, like to get them in, then he takes care of everything else after that, like for real, because they've been in private school and we haven't had the resources to pay for it, and we don't owe anybody anything because it's been paid for. So it's definitely a personal decision, and where God leads you to go, go.
Wow. Wow. So I want to ask a little bit about the scheduling of some of this, because one of the things that's happened recently, my kids, I've got 2 kids that are in high school, and their school is going to school virtually, but they're trying to decide, should they try to mimic the in-person schedule, or are there other options that they should be considering with regard to how they deliver this virtual education? So do you have any guidance about what parents should be looking for, or how they can help? What are some of the things that they should consider as they look at screen time and how kids should operate in this virtual environment?
Well, I can start. You have to consider, you as an adult, how do you operate in this virtual environment? How do you feel when you have to go from meetings to meetings, back to back to back to back? And this is the same thing that your child would be doing, going from classroom from back to back to back to back. Some circumstances that may be good, but when I look at my children, that's not in the best interest of my children. They need that time to process. Yeah. They need that time to get up and stretch, use the restroom, get something to drink before they go to the next class. I'm definitely not a proponent of the back to back to back. Wow. I did like the schedule that TA did last year, and everybody was busy in my house from sun up to sundown. So I was a proponent of that initial schedule. I'm not necessarily a proponent of the back to back to back, just because it's too much screen time back to back.
Okay. And Lakeisha.
Again, for me, it depends on the age group that you're talking about. But what I have said to other teachers, to really keep that in mind, like little kids, 7, 6 years old should not be on Zoom from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, like they straight. Unless you are doing some kind of dynamic where every 15 minutes they're up dancing around. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It really depends on what they're doing throughout the day. I know that middle school and high school do have more screen time than you would think a kindergartner would have. So I do not think that it should mimic what we would do in the classroom, because in the classroom, we're up, we're moving around, we have breaks, we have bathroom breaks, we have recess breaks, we have lunch break, we do all kinds of things, and it's not sitting in one space listening to a teacher or talking to a screen. So I do not think that, I'm not a proponent of that. However, I do think that classes should be engaging and students should be engaged in some sort of something throughout the day. I'm not a proponent of, an hour in the morning and that's it for the rest of the week. No, because it's impossible for me, especially in middle school, to teach a subject like, social studies. I have to prepare you for high school, and there's a certain amount that I have to make sure you know well. An hour a week is not going to work for me. An hour every other day is not going to work for me. So I have to make sure that that's done. So you have to gauge between the two.
Right. Dr. Kesslin.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a bone in that fight. I'm going to trust that the teachers will do what's best for my children. Mm-hmm. And that may not be the best position to take, but in this case, with these teachers, I'm going to trust their judgment. But my 8-year-old is not going to sit for 8 hours. The 10-year-old, he might not sit for 8 hours either.
Nobody sits for 8 hours. Me either.
Right. I can't sit for 2. Right. So, but I'm going to trust that the teachers will make the best decision for the entire class and for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're talking about 2 things here. We're talking about the emotional readiness. There's also the technological piece of this. And there's some technologies that I think the last time we talked about kids not having internet access, we talked about printers and a lot of things being printed and families not being ready to print all of those different things. Are there technologies, or are there things that we need to do a little bit differently now that we've had, maybe 5 months in this thing to be technologically ready for virtual school now?
Prepare your house.
Correct.
If everyone is at home,
Mm-hmm.
you have to make sure you have enough bandwidth. You need to make sure that the Wi-Fi is strong enough, because everybody's going to be on a device. So you really have to prepare your house and remember what worked and did not work in the spring, so that you prepare for the fall.
I would also say that when you're setting up, if you have more than 2 kids or 3 kids, setting up where they're going to be working, they're not going to be able to be in the same room. I know one of the things that I ran into a lot last year was, kids who had younger siblings, they were all on Zoom together, and there's a lot of background noise. We're all engaging in conversation. We're all excited, and I'm hearing what second grade is doing, and I'm hearing, and I'm like, can you move out? So keeping that in mind, and making sure that they have microphones that work, that they can hear me and I can hear. That was a problem I had with some students last year. And for middle school, it could be prohibitive of some of the learning if those machines aren't working well.
Wow. I want to get some more answers on this, but before we do, I just want to hop over to the poll again. Go to meet.ps/Brinklow SDA, meet.ps/Brinklow SDA. And this question says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how technologically prepared do you feel for this school year? On a scale of 1 to 10, how technologically prepared do you feel for this school year? Okay, so let's continue with that. I love what you talked about just now, Keisha, with just setting up their space, making sure that they are in different areas. So let's kind of combine that with the scheduling issue. Okay, what are some of the, if you can give us some specifics on maybe timing? What are some good seat time numbers for parents to consider for their children? How long is too long, or how short is too short as they're sitting in their space?
Do you want Keisha to start, or may I?
You can start, Jewel.
Okay. It's funny that you should mention that, because my leadership team and I were figuring out the schedule for my students. Mm-hmm. And I have students that are students of trauma. So we were trying to figure out how much seat time and how much independent work and how we should schedule that. So we were actually voting on a schedule last night, actually yesterday, and we came up with a schedule in which it's going to be 50 minutes of seat time. Mm-hmm. And then they'll have independent work at the start of the morning. They have independent in the middle of the day and lunch, because we have to provide an opportunity for the students who are on free and reduced to go and pick up lunch and then come back. And then every other class is 50 minutes after that, because we went to block scheduling to make sure that we could get enough seat time, face-to-face time, then give them an opportunity to process.
Right. Okay. Carmen.
It will depend on what your school system provides. So your school system will say what time specific classes will be, and then the students are supposed to be there during that time. I know before the end of the school year, we met with our students twice a week for half an hour. We've been told that we will have a more robust teacher-student interaction for this set of online learning, but we're not sure exactly what that'll be. They've come up with sample schedules. Right. So, it'll be like 45 minutes, because I'm in first grade. So an hour on a computer with 6-year-olds, I think is a bit long. Right. So I think it's like 45 minutes of work, then a break, then maybe another 45 minutes of work. Maybe math will be first, then your break, and then reading, language arts will be next. Then another break, and then they'll have their content areas like social studies, health, history, and science will be another section. They've also been told that now the related arts will also be online. So they'll have to get back online to do their art for the day, or their PE for the day, or their music for the day, or computers for the day. So a lot of the schedule will be based on what the school system gives to you. I know Howard County has agreed to, and D. Peters has as well, give every elementary student a Chromebook. So that's their way of trying to leveling out the playing field. Now, they also have to deal with hotspots and different kids that don't have internet access. But I think the school systems are trying their best to give if they have the money be able to give every kid access to what they need.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. So I like that you gave some very specific times there, Carmen. And I want to ask, it's really helpful for parents to understand some of those things so that they can, not necessarily that they need to check the teachers, but that they can really monitor some of the things that their children are doing. So speaking of monitoring, children are going to be using different technological platforms. Some of them may be using Zoom, some using Google Classroom, some using Nearpod, some using Lexia, some using Class Dojo. There are a multiplicity of platforms that are there. How do parents, without driving themselves crazy, get familiar enough with any of these platforms so that they can really have some handle on what their kids are doing? Why don't we start with Dr. Stennis?
Trial and error.
Yeah.
I think once we know what platform each teacher will use, you just have to try it out for yourselves. You know, I'm a teacher and I'm still learning. I'm a teacher. I still go to intensives on, you know, so many of the platforms that you've mentioned because we're learning too. Wow. But the only way to get it is to do it. And so you have to practice, you have to work, you have to allow yourself to make mistakes and engage in the learning process.
Mm-hmm. So let's dive a little bit deeper there. So you said practice. How does a parent practice? What is something that, do I need to set aside time in my schedule for homework for myself on Google Classrooms too? What does that look like? How do I do that?
So I can tell you what I did. When we transitioned, that first 2 weeks was learning under fire. Mm-hmm. But every time they were in the Google Class, and listen, my children are much more exploratory than I am. They teach me things. But every time they went into the Google Classroom, I went in too. I explored, I touched the tabs, homework should be here. And I emailed the teacher. There were days when I did not know how to access certain things. And so I emailed the teacher emailed me back. And, you know, it was 2 weeks of learning under fire, but it's what I had to do. Every time they were on, I was on.
Ms. Dickerson.
Again, I agree with Dr. Stennis.
Kesslin.
Google Classrooms, I mean, there's free trainings online for Google Classrooms. It's just your G Suite Gmail. You can, it's free. But with Frankie, when he went on, I was figuring out how to attach those slides and upload pictures. And 1 week, Frankie had everything and he knew how to do it all. I mean, my friend's second grader, Sanaya, was doing it after the first week. The parents never had to go back in again. But I agree. The first week with your child, you learn when they do. Now, I know GE Peters is going to be offering trainings on whatever platforms we are using so that parents can know how to work them, how to upload your documents, how to upload your assignments. So that's good as well. But if I didn't have that, I would be right there with my child. And you only need like 1 or 2 days and you'll get the hang of it.
They'll get it before we will.
Looks like, I'm just going to the poll here really quickly. It looks like we've got about a 7 out of 10 is how people are feeling as far as how prepared they are for the school year technologically. So is that about where let me ask you as teachers, where are you? How prepared are you feeling technologically?
So I've been using Google Classrooms for about 3 years. I have not been using everything with Google Classrooms. Like, so this is my first time. I was like, oh, I didn't know it did that. I didn't know it did that. So like now, I actually feel good. What the reservations that I have are all emotional. They're all like, I want to see my kids. I want to touch my kids. I want that kind of thing. Technologically, I think we're good. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm not even that great at it. It gives me what I need to be the teacher I need to be. So I'm okay.
So I want to start with Jewel on this, and we're sticking with technology here. So we know that they need computers. Mm-hmm. We know that they need to be able to possibly print. So are there other things technologically that parents can be doing to be prepared for the school year?
So remember, we're dealing with different socioeconomics in this particular conversation.
Yep.
So if you're in a lower economics, a lot of schools have been in contact with the parents to find out exactly what they need. And there's resources out there to provide for the parents and the students so that they can get those resources, down to hotspots. How many hotspots do you have in the house? Depends upon how many kids you may have in the house. So we'll call our parents and ask them, okay, do you have internet accessibility? And if you don't, do you need a hotspot? And if you need a hotspot, what are the age ranges of your kids that you have in the school system? So that's the connection that we do with our particular parents. Like I have a group now that's going to be giving out care packages to my students, and every student will get a care package with different things in it so they can start the school year out. Yeah. Because they weren't engaged in the summer, in the spring. So those are some of those things too. And with those types of conversations, we can assess the needs of our particular children and their parents.
Excellent. So I want to continue with that question, but I want to ask it just a little bit differently. Back in the day, before school started, you used to have to go out to, I'm going to go date myself now, Woolworth, and all of these other stores to get school supplies. They had to get pencils, they had to get paper, they had to get notebooks, a trapper keeper, a binder. They had to get the big, the right lined size paper, right? So you knew you had a list of things that you were supposed to get. What does that list consist of right now? Even if your school hasn't given you something yet because they're not sure if they're going virtual or how they're going to do that, what are some of the things that we may need to look at or look to purchase or just be prepared with to get ahead of the game?
So like I'm providing my students with stylus pens because their laptops are touchscreen. So I'm making sure that they have that. And that's going to be a part of our care package. I'm providing them with pens, paper, notebooks, composition books, because sometimes kids just need that physical touch feel, write in a notebook to process their thoughts. So those are some of the things that I'm giving. I'm also giving out stress balls. That doesn't have anything to do with technology, but that has everything to do with that social emotional piece, because I know that they deal with that. But back to the technology piece, what they really need is that Chromebook or whatever device that the school system is giving to them, and then tools and softwares and being able to access and know how to access that software. And those are some things that we go through training. If a student says, I need help with that, we'll do one-on-one training with them.
Yeah. So let's go with Keslin. What are there questions on the technology end that parents should be asking the school so that they're clear? Are there questions that they should be trying to gain clarity on or help to navigate this virtual space?
So we have to think about what happens if technology goes wrong, right? Like today, my internet has been crazy all day. What happens in the event? Critical question. What happens in the event that our technology malfunctions? Are their assignments can they still submit them? What will be the grade reduction if there is one? Wow. Are there alternative means of submitting assignments? Those are going to be critical questions, particularly for, I think, younger students who are not processing at the same, level. So if I had to ask one question, that would be it. That would be it.
Yes, Ms. Dickerson, what questions should parents be asking you as a teacher from a technology perspective?
You mean what would parents ask the teacher? What would they need technological wise? Is that what you mean?
Well, just to make sure that the experience is seamless or the experience is smooth. So, for example, what Keslin said, what happens if technology goes down? Are there other questions? I mean, and Keisha may be thinking about this, but does anybody else on the panel have any other questions that parents should be asking from a technology perspective?
Well, how much access that they'll be able to have with the teacher? Like, how can I access you besides through this computer? Are there other ways that we can communicate with each other. If something's going wrong, how can we do that?
Okay.
I think it also too depends on, again, the age range you're dealing with, elementary versus middle and high school. To be honest with you, parents rarely contact me until grades come out. So it's usually me dealing with the student and the student saying, Ms. Dickerson, I don't have this, and I think most teachers, when they give out their syllabus or they present, you'll see, the grades and how things are graded. But I think most teachers would be, open to understanding if there's a technological issue. So those aren't issues that I normally would have.
Okay.
Middle school. Again, I teach middle school, and it's the student and I dealing back and forth, not necessarily the parent.
Wow. So
Robert, I did have another
go ahead. Yep.
thought, and I don't know if it's the responsibility of the teacher or the school, but there should be a conversation about boundaries, protections, blocks. How can we, now that children have access to the entire world, everything in the world is not appropriate. And so how can we ensure that our children are not exposed to the things that we don't want them exposed to? And again, I'm not saying that that's the responsibility of the school or the teacher, but I think it is a question that we need to consider.
Wow. So let's land there just for a moment. So it's not the responsibility of the school, and parents may not necessarily know what do schools need to put in place that you know of so that these types of things don't happen, so that kids are not, everywhere.
It might be nice to have, if nothing else, an info sheet.
Okay.
It might be nice to have an info sheet. Contact this person or this company if you want to learn about, or did you know that this company provides blocks? It would be nice just to have a little guide sheet, an info sheet, if possible.
Okay. Anything else? Any other thoughts? Okay. So let's look at the emotional piece of this again. I know we started to talk about that, but this really is a huge piece of this. What are some of the things that parents need to be doing additionally to make sure that their kids are handling this emotionally well?
Robert, I'm not a counselor. I'm not, I don't have a counseling background, but I do feel that our kids need to interact with one another. And I know for Frankie, I've tried over the summer to have socially distanced play dates, Zooms with his friends. I've tried to, even with my book club, to make sure that there's time for them just to talk. Even in class in the spring, the first couple of minutes, we were just, talking. How do you feel? What are you doing? How's your family doing? Because that part, we miss each other. We miss each other. And I know that we're supposed to be on lockdown, but we need to figure out, I believe that we need to figure out safe ways for our kids to interact with each other socially, outside of the classroom, outside of Zooming with the classroom. There has to be a way.
Can y'all give us some additional examples? I asked that because one of the things that we dealt with as we went to this quarantine, we have a couple of boys and they were looking at this game, Fortnite, right? And I think most of you have heard of Fortnite, and they were playing it. And so as we're wondering how much time do we give them on Fortnite, one of the things that occurred to us was that while they were playing, they were on their headphones or they were on their speakers. They were talking to their friends during this game. And it was not just that they were locked into a game. It was a way of interacting socially with friends that they had not been seeing for the last 3 or 4 months. And so we had to reconsider our perspective on time allowed or how to navigate this. So, what are some of the other things that we may need to adjust or reconsider as we think about how the social emotional piece?
Bobby, the other thing for me too is I used to say, I know a lot of parents have like restrictions on how much time you can watch TV or how much time you can play video games, or no video games during the school day, or no TV during the school day. Those are things you have to now take into consideration. They're on Zoom all day. They hadn't had recess with their friends. They haven't had, so you may have to set up some play dates. You may have to let them play video games where they can talk to one another. We have to think about the way that we parent differently now, because that part of the interaction is missing from their lives. And I mean, I know how I feel as an adult. I went to the beach on Monday. We went to Rehoboth, and on the way back, I accidentally ran into Landy James and her 3 girls. 3 of them I taught. We were at the gas station, and when I saw them, I started crying. Like, it hit me. I have not seen them in months, talked to them in months. Now, I hugged their ankles because I didn't want to get too close, but I'm an adult, and I just can imagine if you don't have siblings, if you're your only child, what are they doing?
Right.
We have to think about those things if they're going to keep us locked in this house for another year.
Wow. I want to have a couple of you tag on to that, but I want to have the audience go back to meet.ps/Brinklow SDA. And the third question, last question that we have for today is, how emotionally prepared are you for this virtual learning? On a scale of 1 to 10, how emotionally prepared are you for this virtual learning? Okay, so back to the panelists with this question. Emotionally, socio-emotionally, what are some things that we can be doing? How can parents and teachers help students, help children to navigate this virtual learning from a socio-emotional perspective? What are some things we can be doing?
I'll jump in. I agree with Keisha. My daughter, and I think I may have said this last time, but the 8-year-old said, Keisha, you'll appreciate this. She said, Mommy, just out of the blue, Mommy, I miss church. I miss school. I miss hugs.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, I have to do something for my child. So what I did was every Friday, when I remember, and my alarm goes off, every Friday at 11:30, she has lunch with her school friends during the summer. Goodness, they talk about everything. So it's my Zoom account. So I'm like on, but they forget that I'm there. But I'm watching them, and all they do is talk and watch a show together.
Wow.
But just for them to share that time means so much to so many of them. They look forward to it.
Wow.
I used to say it'll be an hour, but I've noticed that they can stay on for 2 hours just being in each other's company. So that's been good. And I'll tell you, confession, I'm scared, but yeah, pray for me. But yesterday, Thursday, I actually had a water balloon fight at my house. And I told them, you can only invite 2 of your friends, 2 friends. I arranged it in my yard so that they won't have to go, they can be distant while still fighting.
Wow.
Now listen, am I afraid? I'm prayerful. I'm like, God, I don't know if this is the right thing, but I know that my children need interaction. They were just, I could see the spirit in them just disappearing because they hadn't been around people. So am I afraid? Unfortunately, yes, I am. I made sure that everyone had their mask. I did as much as I could to promote social distance, but I knew that I needed to do something so that they could just thrive in that way.
Wow.
Find a safe way to have them interact.
Right.
If we're going to be here for another year, they have to interact with one another.
Right. And give them a chance to rant. I have a 15, 13, 12, 4. Give them a chance to say, this sucks.
Yeah.
I hate not seeing my friends. I hate not being able to touch them or like give them a hug. Give them a moment to just express themselves, and don't take it as them. They might just do it while you're having a conversation. It may seem disrespectful, but it's not them being disrespectful. It's them giving them just allowing themselves to feel what they feel, acknowledge how they feel, and be able to say, this is dreadful. We've never had to experience this, not seeing our friends for months. They haven't seen some of their friends for months that they would usually see every day. So just giving them a chance to say, this is dreadful, it sucks, and try and figure out ways to allow them to communicate and be around each other.
Wow.
Safely.
I'm looking at the poll results, and how emotionally prepared are you? We've got 5. 5. That's where people are right now. 5.
They're like me. They're burnt out. They haven't had a break this summer.
Excellent. I was agreeing with you. I said, now most of this was my own fault, but I feel like I have been working nonstop since last August. Like, I'm tired, and I want a mental break.
Right. So how do you do that? How do you get that? And we've got only about a minute here. So if we can go back around really quickly, what, as teachers, as parents, can you do you need to do right now to take that break or get yourself emotionally set? What can you do really quickly, 30 seconds or less?
Well, my friend Porsche Vanderhorst told me, Keisha, you have to have a start and an end time. Have your end time. Don't deal with it. Don't deal with GE Peters. Don't deal with students. Don't deal with parents. Don't think about it. Take a break.
Wow.
And then start again later. Take a break. And that's what I'm going to try to do this week before school starts. Take a mental break from it all.
Okay. Jewel, what do we do?
Self-care, mindfulness, making sure that you schedule time for yourself within your schedule, making sure that you're dealing with home, your children, your work. You have to find the balance, and you have to get the exercise in, and you have to go back to making sure that you're getting that sunlight, that water, because if you're not physically and mentally right for yourself, you're not going to be right for anybody else.
Wow. Kesslyn, what do we do?
Yeah, so I agree with what Lakeisha and Joel have said. I've taken up exercising just for myself. That is my peace time. But a friend of mine said, find something fun. Kesslyn, you need to find something fun to do. For her, it's sewing. For me, I haven't found it yet, but I'm looking. but find something that takes your mind away from work, and it's fun for you.
Carmen?
Go for a walk, go outside, look at God's nature, see how many blessings we actually still do have, even though we're in this yucky situation. Just go and spend some time alone, just contemplating how great God is.
Wow. I want to thank each of our panelists for your contributions today. It's been amazing just going through this conversation with you. I want everybody else to recognize and to remember, this is uncharted territory. None of us have experienced something of this magnitude in our lifetime. And so you're not going to have all of the answers. We don't have all of the answers. The president certainly doesn't have all the answers. The senators don't have the answers. The congressmen, they don't have all of the answers. The only person that has the answers is God. And so we've got to lean into our faith. We're here. We have a church community. We have family. We have friends. We have people that we can lean into. The thing that you don't want to do right now, even though we're at home, is we don't want to isolate ourselves. As the panelists have said, find ways to care for yourself, find ways to help your kids have healthy relationships and to lean into those relationships and get reconnected, because it's important. It's important. We're going to make it through this. We're going to make it through this together, and we're going to make it through this thing better. God bless you all. Have an amazing rest of your Sabbath and make this week phenomenal. See you soon.